make it right for everybody.
Right.
It's up on display.
Right.
But it's
That conversation hasn't been had up to now.
But it changes
the
the,
part of the park. I hate him to say it. Now, do these people like also come to you?
putting all those ideas together, wanting to help people.
And that office is in
It doesn't define the fact that we all share the blame.
tonight. All the stuff going on in Bemidji.
So, diesel
Yeah, Annapolis,
and-
Maryland. It's those big yachts you never
There you
afford.
You gotta purchase local, you gotta get back to that community.
You know, democracy depends on participation. It thrives on participation.
Thank you.
Please give us. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm Lou Crenshaw, and thanks to Upstream TV, we're back with another season of Inside Bemidji, the program that tries to showcase the people and the organizations who are working to make our city an even better place. And here we are in our new season, 2013, and we're kicking it off exactly as we did last year in 2012, starting with our Planning Administrator for the Greater Bemidji area, Mayana Rice.
Thank you.
And thank you, good to see you again.
Yeah.
Surviving the winter.
So far, it's been a long 6 months.
So, yes. So remind us, Mayana, how many years have you been here now as the Planning Administrator?
I'm creeping up on my second year, so I think I was hired about 2 years ago to the date, maybe, that we're recording this. So it's been 2 years since I've been here,
And you moved here, remind me, from?
moved here from the great state of Wyoming.
Well, they have winters out there. Though,
They
right?
do. The wind blows out there a little bit harder than it blows here. So
And has it been a good 2 years?
it has. I think we've settled into the community, but also have done quite a bit in the position. So
Good.
yeah,
Good fit for you.
definitely.
And you've bought a house. You live here now in the city, right?
Bought a house, live in the city. That's correct.
Rumor has it you're starting a family. Any truth to that?
Rumor has it, if you can see on the screen, that came very close to starting a family. So
Good for you. Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna be pleased to watch how things unfold.
yeah.
Well, we're here tonight to talk about the comprehensive plan that the planning office is leading the writing. And I say leading the writing because it's a community effort, and we're going to hear more about that. But a comprehensive plan for the Greater Bemidji area that'll guide our development into the future. So I've told you more than I understand about that, so let's hear what that really, tell us about a comp plan, Mayana, and why are we doing it and what's it do for us?
A comprehensive plan can go in many different directions, and I think ours, because you said it's very community-centered, it's oriented around the people in the community and what they want to see. Ours is going in a diverse direction. In the past, maybe a comp plan would be streets, infrastructure, engineering, but we're looking at many more aspects of the community. We've had meetings on housing, we've had meetings on the environmental concerns that people have, economic development, and one of my favorites so far has been creativity. The fact that so many of us work a day job and then we have a creative side job that we also do, or a creative endeavor, or something that really is the reason we live in Bemidji and in the North Woods.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And good, and so how has it been as far as community participation? I remember that we did some kickoffs on this and we reached out to get people involved. How's that worked?
So we started with the Minnesota design team coming to the community, and that group spent 3 days brainstorming. For those of you who attended, I think we had about 200 people that attended that. It was just a time for people to put their great ideas out there on the table. It was a time for an outside group to come in and take a look at the community. Once that was done, we now have the data from that, but then we launched into subcommittee groups on a wide variety of topics that we'll talk about
Like
in a few
some of them
minutes.
that you were just mentioning.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through some of them and talk about them. Now,
Yeah.
you just reached a point
Mm-hmm.
where I know you had a public, what would you call it, showing?
Correct. It was an open house.
An open house.
Yep. So
To show, now, does that mean you reached a milestone, or it was timely, in what
Mm-hmm.
way?
That's correct. So these subcommittees that worked together, and I would say probably 100, 150 people worked in the subcommittees, they came up with a list of goals based on the topics of interest to them. This list of goals was then put out to the public because, again, at each step in this process, we need the public involved. We need your comments, we need your information, we need your concerns. So we had about 70 people that attended an open house at Bemidji High School
It was
2 weeks
just
ago.
2 weeks
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So it was fantastic turnout.
Good. And we're going to talk later about how you can get involved. It's not too late. In fact, it's very timely now that these subcommittees are formed, they're up and running. We're going to look at a little of their work and talk about it. And so as we go through them, look for one that you might be interested in or passionate about even better. And we'll talk to you about how to hook up with this process, okay?
Absolutely.
So we're sitting here, we have a number of these visuals. They were actually prepared for the open house Mayana was talking about. And we're just going to talk about we're going to use these to talk about some of the work of the various committees, okay?
Sounds great.
So the first one I pulled up quite by random, but it's a good one, is environmental quality. So let's start with this one and give us an idea, all of us an idea about how this works.
So each of the subcommittees did two things. The first thing they did was talk about a vision statement, which you can see here for environmental quality. The vision statement that they came up with.
Maintain and improve the high quality of life in the greater Bemidji area. That sounds great.
Promotes a healthy mind, body, building and highlighting our environmental resources, and parks and recreational opportunities.
So they wrote that. They got
They wrote
together.
that. That's correct.
They said, okay, under environmental quality, what are we trying to do?
What are we
Right?
trying to do?
Where are
What
we
are we
trying to get
accomplishing?
to? What are you trying to do? So that's, and that's for everyone that we'll see, right? There's a vision for
That's
every
true.
group.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We had a vision statement for each subcommittee. Then we came up with the concept of what are our goals, what are we looking at. This group talked a little bit more about the resources and then what the tools are and how to do that. So some of the resources they want to protect, build, highlight, as they said in the vision statement: air, night sky, water, habitat, wildlife, soil, climate and weather, and working landscapes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so they
Green
came up with
spaces,
green spaces,
parks,
biodiversity,
Great.
a lot of really good things that we do want to protect as a community. And then they talked about what are the tools? How do we actually manage, highlight, build on those environmental resources? And we looked at some of the tools that we would be able to use to accomplish that. So demonstration projects, one of the things that I thought was fun that came out of that said, well, if the government isn't doing it, why should the regular folk do it? And so they said, well, maybe we should have some demonstration projects. Maybe in a park we should put an area that demonstrates a native landscape garden.
Yeah. They've done that by the trail up by the university, I believe.
Correct, yeah.
Right
So
on
maybe
that edge
the
there.
maybe we look at the engineering department and how do they promote best management practices as they develop streets and infrastructure.
This is an interesting little one. I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see it, Mike, but here's a regular house, and this comes from St. Croix, but this is an interesting idea. I don't know, if you can see it, but what they've done is turn the front garden into a garden. I mean, it looks like wildflowers. Interesting
Yeah.
concept.
So one of the key things is that for those of you who live on the lake shore or within 1,000 feet of the lake shore, you have a limited amount of pervious area and impervious that you're allowed. So one of the things that we have in our code is that if you have a rain garden where you have the majority of your stormwater going into it, we allow you a benefit or an increase in your impervious area. So this is
I
a
bought
tool.
a bag of those wildflower
Oh,
seeds
yes.
from the conservation
Okay.
guys. I don't even know where they are anymore, but they used to be right down here downtown anyway. But I found my thumbs weren't green. I
Your
planted
thumbs
them,
are not green.
but I didn't get any wildflowers, so maybe this will inspire me to
There
try
you go,
again.
it might.
So tell me again,
Yeah.
now, these are the resources,
Yep.
and these are talking about how you might either make people aware of them or bring them about or enhance them. Is that right?
That's correct. So this group here, if you're interested in environmental quality, This is what they looked at as our beginning steps. Now, what we're going to do in this next set of meetings is we're going to go back, look at the vision, look at the information that we receive from the public, and at this point, we're going to come up with specific projects that we want to accomplish.
So a lot more work to be done here. Again, we're hitting these at a high level, but you've seen the one on environmental quality. I have one more question just about the process.
Sure.
So some of these things like surface water or, I don't know, night sky, would these imply that at some point we would change our codes or change our rules, and how would that work?
That's absolutely correct. There are going to be specific projects, and then there's also going to be policy changes. So, for instance, if we're talking about surface water, we might be talking about, ensuring that silt fences are preventing erosion during a construction project. That might be something that we increase in our code. Or we need additional stormwater management processes when somebody's developing. Or night sky, maybe we say when businesses are developing, they need to ensure that from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., they turn out lights or
Right, so they
things.
could actually
Yeah.
be regulations.
They could,
And
absolutely.
so, you may agree with this, you may like it, you may think they ought to do work on something different, but this could well turn out to be different kind of regulations that lead to development of our community. So if you're passionate or interested or concerned or whatever, please hook up with one of these groups and work on it. So we're going to put up another one and move on, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, as you can see, that during the break, we moved to Parks and Recreation, and we're gonna move along through these committees. So how about this one, Mayana? You wanna tell
Sure.
us what's going on here?
I'll tell you that the vision statement that Parks and Rec Group came up with was to provide an interconnected web of recreational opportunities for residents and visitors that afford passive and active programming which promotes healthy lifestyles, sense of place, and fun and enjoyment.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
really. And some concepts here. Where did they get these pictures and graphics? Are
Yeah,
beautiful.
there's a variety of concepts up here. For instance, this one right here is one of the concepts that's in the existing City of Bemidji Parks Plan. That was completed last year. Now, as all of you know who are watching it, the greater Bemidji area encompasses Bemidji Township, Northern Township, and the City of Bemidji. So therefore, this is a diagram that shows the park, Paul Bunyan and Library Park.
So this is the
It's a
This is the
concept.
park, one of the concepts for the
Correct.
park plan that they're developing and working on.
Correct.
Trying to turn it into a project.
Mhm. So we're not rewriting that plan in any way,
Mhm.
shape, or form. What we're
Mhm.
doing is we're taking information out of that plan and putting it together with more of that regional concept. So things like, where are we missing linkages and trails? Okay, so the concept here is that this was out of the city plan, but I just want to remind everyone that we're looking at this comprehensive plan from the greater Bemidji area. So that includes Bemidji Township, Northern Township, and the city. Northern Township as well as Bemidji Township also has parks for those who are interested in that information. So if you join this group, the city already has a plan, and we won't be rewriting that. We will be gleaning from that some information, but we're looking at the park system from a more regional aspect.
And so you'll be trying to include concepts of the city plan, include Northern Township and Bemidji Township.
That's correct, and we have a state park as well in our area. So we have the Bemidji State Park, and I don't know if anybody goes on the parks websites for the state level, but Itasca and Bemidji State Park are two of the most visited parks in the state on a yearly basis. So, looking at that whole entire system and how it works with our community.
And of course, the trails, I presume, since you have it here, are a big part of this as well, because we have that great trail system around.
That's correct. We actually had a few meetings not too long ago talking about a shared bike plan, where someone could rent a bike and maybe get on the Paul Bunyan Trail. I think it's 110 miles, and maybe they want to go to Walker for the day and have a place where they can drop off the bike when they get there, or something like that. So yes, it's definitely a more regional concept is what we're looking at here.
How, and grandiose is not the word, but how much muscle could we put behind some of these plans? I guess what I'm grasping and trying to ask you is, what if we needed to build an extension of the trail or move some roads around, change them? Is that even possible? Can we, how does a vision and a plan get converted into that kind of potential action?
So there's a couple of different things that could happen. We definitely aren't looking at this as just advocacy. We're not another group that's, we're not another group of the community residents who say we want this. We are creating a plan, and we will have action items that come out of this. Now, there will be low-hanging fruit. Some people don't like that term, but there'll be simple things that we can get done, and then there's going to be long-term things that will take years, and it may be more of an advocacy, and it may be going to a board or looking for grants to write or figuring out if this is the most important thing for the community and gathering people together to accomplish that project. I heard somebody say once that it's never about money, it's only about political will.
That's interesting.
So you can think to yourself, well, how do I get this funded, or who's going to be involved? And it sort of makes you think, oh, maybe we shouldn't even get started. But you really have to think beyond that, because if a project is valuable to the community, if the community is on board and really wants it, it can get done.
And that's why, once again, your involvement is important, because we want to know what the community wants and what are the most important things, because big things can happen if we really identify those things that are important to us.
Absolutely. And we also, one of the other things I'd like to say is that because we're writing it as a community, we don't have to put every single possible project that we could think of for the next 20 years on the list. We can say, in 2014, we will accomplish this, in 2015 this, and so we can really look at it from a reasonable perspective and say, what is it that we want to get done?
There you are. Good. So we're going to identify those key things. So that's Parks and Recreation. Let's flip it over here and look at another one. So here we are back again, and now we're going to talk about downtown, the center of business, life, and culture. Our historic downtown center, I presume, Mayana?
That's correct. So the downtown vision statement that was created said, downtown Bemidji, it's the heart of the community, the center of professional services, culture, and life, provides amenities and services for year-round residents, students, and visitors, and has a competitive advantage over surrounding communities. And I think that last one is pretty important.
Yeah, how would you paraphrase that? 'Cause
Yeah.
competitive advantage is kind of a great business term, but how does it apply to a downtown?
So one of the things at one of the events, I heard someone say, well, we'd really love to, why isn't Bemidji more like Walker? And I had to tell a person, I said, well, Walker has one street that is their main street that's packed with people in the summertime, but Bemidji has many streets with many people walking. We're not a one street town. We have multiple layers, we have shops, we have a fantastic farmer's market, we have professional services downtown. Our competitive advantage is that our downtown is more than just a visitor center. It has, it has the campuses for the county, it has city offices. We are definitely a well-rounded downtown. There's some fear that, is the downtown as vibrant as it's always been? And things come and go with downtowns. I would say that when we did our analysis with one of the interns this year, we found a very low vacancy rate. So it was close to about 7%, which was fantastic for downtown in general. So we're doing good, and there's always better that we can do.
And I was not in on this committee, but we've got this park we're working on, this lovely park, and of course the lovely lake. And when visitors come, of course, they're going to stop and see Poland Bay, hopefully the visitor center, and then come into the town. So are we talking about how we bring people in, especially visitors? I mean, people who live here are gonna come in town for the restaurants and the professional services, but now I'm thinking of us as, and you have it here, our historic downtown center. How do we present it to visitors? Have they talked about that?
We have talked about that. One of the key things that was brought up was that exact concept. If you're coming through town and you're visiting Paul and Babe, what actually makes you want to cross the street? What makes you want to come into the downtown? So there's been a lot of focus on that. I think there'll be a couple of projects that probably come out specifically related to that concept. One thing was, seeing, when you look down at the end of streets, what do you see? So, that might be an analysis that we need to do, like as we look down. Is there something inviting, attractive, something that pulls you in, something that makes you say, oh, what's that down there? I want to go take a look. Another idea behind that is a gathering place. We have the park, which is utilized a lot by visitors. We have a lot of businesses and restaurants, but we don't really have another gathering place that's interior to downtown. So we don't have a public square where people sit around in the summertime on the outer edges.
Okay.
We don't have a fountain feature. We don't have anything that some other communities have where people can linger, and it creates that sort of Friday afternoon.
We don't have the Spanish Steps.
We don't have the Spanish Steps.
Okay.
That's correct.
Well, one thing I'll say is that I love all of this color here. So all of the visions are bright and colorful, and I contrast that with this aerial photograph, which is, of course, it's only because it's aerial photograph, but it looks kind of brown, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So boy, the more of this we do, the better, is what I would think. The historic downtown, one of the key assets we have to build on, along with our airport and our university and our health care. We want to keep it vibrant, we want to keep it alive. This committee's working on it. If you're passionate about the downtown, get involved. Let's look at another one. Well, we're back again with sustainability, sort of an abstract word for many of us. Why don't you explain this a little bit for us, Mayana?
Okay, I'll launch into what the vision statement says. It says socially, economically, and environmentally resilient. I think resilience is one of the key words that the sustainability group is looking at. Sustainability could merge into any of the other groups because the concept is really, why do we live here? And if we maintain the high quality of life that we have, then we're sustainable for generations to come. If we allow those things to degrade, again, energy, food, local processes, waste, air, land, biological diversity, and my favorite part that we added, individual wellness. How does a person live and continue living here? And how do we all live here together with our overlapping concepts? So I really like this because they show you that it's not just one concept. It's not saying that we just want to be environmentally sustainable or economically sustainable or a sustainable society, but how do those three things overlap? And so, yeah. Local. Absolutely. That was a great one. When we had some conversations at the beginning, I said, don't think of sustainability as, well, how do we look at our global impact, Bemidji's global impact on climate change. We need to say, what are our very local things that we're doing that are affecting our community in general? So we can all say we want, more solar, wind types of energy, but we really need to say, how does Bemidji accomplish those things? And it may not be on the same scale as other parts of the country.
Now, question, we don't have to become a city-state though, right?
Correct.
Like the old days where all of the food was grown right down there outside the walls. I mean, we can still trade globally, right? We can send wild rice to Italy and get
Absolutely.
Parmigiano Reggiano.
That is true.
Because, we got to have some things. How's
Correct.
that work?
That is true. I mean, it could be that when you look at it from an economic perspective, it could be that somebody starts a local business that then has a global market. So yes, when we're talking a local economy, It can be very local, you and I bartering for flowers and honey, or it can be local, you and I creating a business that then we take to a global perspective.
Well, we won't dive into comparative advantage, but there are reasons to trade.
There
Because
are,
some people
yes.
really do things better than others, and if you
That's true.
trade, globally especially, then everyone wins. So, did I miss the point by going on that too much?
No, but I do think that one of the key things, and it maybe almost has been said too many times, but really supporting those local businesses.
Oh, absolutely.
And then also
Okay.
local businesses supporting other local businesses, because it's also easy for a local business to say buy local, but then where do they get their products to make their goods and services here? So that concept really needs to be in play, and also different types of energy sources. Diversifying the energy that we use in the community is one of the key things I think that this group is looking at, and waste reduction and recycling. So a broad group, a lot of variety,
Yeah,
and a
it's
lot of
big-
interesting topics.
It's a big vision, and it could go in a lot of directions. So sustainability, we have a very active sustainability group
do.
here in Bemidji, by the way, and I'm sure that many of you know that. But now they're working and bringing their thoughts and knowledge to the comprehensive plan. If you're passionate about sustainability or care about this, and I hope you do, here's an opportunity to get involved. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. For those of you who just came on, we're launching our 2013 season for Inside Bemidji, and we're here, of course, thanks to Upstream TV, and we're starting our season off as we started off last year with Mayana Rice, our planning administrator. And we've been talking about the comprehensive plan. This has been going on in our community since the kickoff, which you'll probably remember, the visit of the Minnesota design team. There have been a number of subcommittees that have been at work since then, and they have recently had an open house out at the high school. Maybe you were there. Hope you were there. It had a good turnout. And we're taking this opportunity to get a little closer, talk about some of the work of these committees, get Mayana to explain what they're up to, and hopefully you'll be interested enough to join up with one, because we want the widest community participation we can get.
Yep.
Well, thanks again for coming, Mayana, and we've reached housing goals. So tell us about housing goals. What's this
Okay.
subcommittee up to?
So, I guess I could say it for every subcommittee, we have a diverse group of people involved. So we have people who are realtors, we have people who are landlords, we have people who are working with housing and low-income housing opportunities that are in the community. So it's interesting when you start looking at how those things overlay, and who's working on which goals, and how the community's needs are being met. Because we have a large number of needs. I mean, we do have that really low income person who needs housing just as much as someone who might be retiring here. So you can see here, we have a lot of pictures that were taken over the course of our process.
Yes.
And it's fascinating. I mean, we put
It is
everything
quite
from...
a diversity.
Yeah, we
isn't it?
have multifamily, student housing, individual homes, and then also rural, some of the rural homes that we have.
Now, excuse me for
Yeah.
interrupting you, but this is the first one we've had up that doesn't have a vision.
That's
So-
correct. They do have a vision statement. It just wasn't
Just
put
wasn't
on the
put on
poster.
there. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
each of the groups was allowed to create these posters, and this one just ended up with more of the goals on it.
So what kind of things are they
Yeah.
talking about? How will this translate into action or guide our development?
I'll point out one here. It says,
Mhm.
pursue form-based zoning overlay districts in appropriate neighborhoods.
Form-based.
Form-based. So right now, we're talking a lot about how does this work in the code?
I think the planning department came up with form-based. You better back up and tell us what form-based
Exactly.
is.
So, in basic zoning, they would just say residential, and I would have setbacks and what you can and can't do,
all of the ordinances.
all of that type of thing.
Uh-huh.
With form-based, you get a little bit more into where is a community or a specific neighborhood going? So it may be that instead of setbacks, we might want to say, what does it look like? So what's the form that it's taking on? And so I'll describe one neighborhood that a lot of people know. In the Nymore area,
Okay.
you have, for instance, you have the garden, you have the corner bar, you have a laundromat, and then surrounding that, you have residential. And a mix of residential.
So you got
couple of
kind
duplexes,
of
I
a
kind of.
center and then,
Yeah.
then residential areas.
So it may be that instead of saying, here's commercial and here's housing, it may be that we say, here's an area where we have flexibility. This house could be turned into a dentist office.
Gotcha.
This part of this portion could be turned into an attorney's office, where you have a little bit of that mix.
Or this building could be returned to residency.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it can go
So
either
you,
way.
yep. So you look at that, and then you look at other things that you'd like in exchange. So we might say we definitely want sidewalks. We definitely want a certain number of trees. We definitely want things to look a certain way. So that's a little bit what form-based zoning is about. Getting away from, very strict standards and talking more about flexibility where it's needed in certain communities and certain neighborhoods.
So this group, just from looking at their chart, they're not just involved in where our community is going, but they're also pretty much on zoning, regulating the rules. So they're tackling what our ordinances look like at the same time.
They are. One of the key things with the development and housing in this community is that it's one of the number one things where you go to the code
Yes.
to see what you're allowed to do.
Sure.
If someone comes into my office from a single individual home to a 112 unit multifamily, the first place they're going is to the rules.
Okay.
So this group is a little more focused, but you did have some of
that's
the other
integral.
things.
That's integral.
It's
to
integral
housing.
to that
I
process,
understand.
correct.
All right.
You do have a couple of other things though. For instance, we talked about successful home ownership. We kind of get that. And then also increased rental housing opportunities. So these two kind of work together, and we want to encourage people to own homes, but at the same time, based on the type of economy we have and the levels of income, we also want to have increased rental opportunities.
A
variety.
You want the
of
whole
types.
spectrum, right?
We want it all, correct. So that's why you see a variety of goals here.
So if you are interested in housing and interested in diversity in housing, where we're going in housing, what our ordinances might look like, how do we get more rentals and other kinds of housing and be proud of our neighborhoods, you might be interested in the work of this subcommittee.
That's right.
Let's look at another one. So here we are, land use and transportation. Quite an interesting map, something we don't see every day. This is out of the planning office, Mayana?
That's correct. This is what we call a future land use plan. So it's more general than a zoning map. It just kind of identifies where do we think commercial is going to occur, where do we think housing is going to occur, which areas are we going to keep in green space or conservation land.
These are green space?
That's correct. So
Beautiful.
it's a more generalized map, and its purpose is to just say where are we kind of going. It's not to say this neighborhood has this type of development in it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. What's the red?
The red is commercial.
That's commercial, okay.
Yep.
And guess I can see that. And the green, we talked about parks about 10 minutes ago. Are these potential park areas as our city continues to move around the lake?
That's correct. So you can see here, this is Bemidji State Park, and then we have some of the waterfront
Oh, this
parks
is the
here.
state
Yeah,
park.
it's the state park up
Okay.
there. We have some other green areas, and then one of the key things with land use that we might get into, which also would overlap with environmental and possibly sustainability, is linkages. How do you actually get to each one of these areas? And I don't mean linkages necessarily always for human scale, but it could be for animals, biological diversity.
No, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought
Yeah,
of that.
so, and then we have our waterways, and then as most of us know, here We have a large wetland complex that sort of controls growth, another large wetland complex up here that
Yeah,
also
right,
controls
right,
growth.
right.
So if you look at the greater Bemidji area in general, you see that you get kind of an hourglass concept here. So a lot of residential in Northern Township, opportunity for more residential in Bemidji Township, but you are constrained by certain environmental and other land use characteristics.
And how
that
are
we
they
have.
tackling that then?
Yeah, so the land use, their
Retain-
vision.
They want to keep the community character.
Yep.
Diversity of the uses.
Natural and historic resources, and
Human
then a human
scale.
scale.
No 20-story high-rises soon.
Yeah, so one of the things that came out of a lot of these meetings was people like a small town feel, but most people realize that we're growing and changing.
Mm-hmm.
And as we grow and change, what is it that we're really trying to get at?
Oh,
What
okay.
we're really saying is we want a human scale community.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to feel comfortable here in various modes of transportation and various activities that you would be involved in.
We do want our services though,
You want your services, but you want to,
but we wanted to keep its small-town character.
right, except we're not small town character as we continue to grow. So overlapping those two things.
Question, what's this little red thing up here? If this is commercial, I didn't know there was a commercial place up there in
You're putting
Northern
me on
Township.
the spot. I apologize.
No, that's all
This
right.
might
Andrew
be,
probably just got that red by accident. I don't know. Anyway, I'll
trying to
ask you
think-
that
yeah,
another day.
you should.
Okay. Well, anyway, future land use
And
is,
transportation, yep.
and transportation,
Yep.
how you use it, how you get around. This is now a really, it would seem to me, key part of our planning for how our development goes over the next 10 or 20 years.
Absolutely.
Because you can influence this greatly, I would imagine, by codes and
You can.
designations.
Definitely. And the key thing is, do we have enough of each of these land uses? Have we built out our commercial? Have we built out our multifamily? Do we need to expand any of these areas? There's those types of concepts that come into play. The other thing with the transportation is really how do people get around? Do we need to look at different streets that need to be reconstructed? Do we have that cohesive network? I mean, since we have this kind of bottleneck concept here,
Yeah.
do people, how do people get around? And not just on a local street level, but also more of the MnDOT concepts and how people are coming in and out of the community. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
And I like this one, improve the collaboration awareness of your capital improvement plan. So once you
Mhm.
start talking about these different transportation or linkages or whatever, then how do we do it as a community, right?
absolutely.
So land use and transportation are a very important part of the comprehensive plan, and if you're interested or feel like you'd like to know more about this or contribute, certainly be welcome. Let's look at another one. So we just talked about the subcommittee on land use and transportation, and hand in hand with that is infrastructure and public services. Once again, we're looking out in time, right?
We are,
10,
definitely.
20 years, and thinking about our vision and what we need to do as our community changes and evolves.
So you can't say enough times how much all of this is interconnected. And so that's why you might look at these groups and you might think, is that really something that's related to the other thing? And yes, most of them are. So one of the key things here, you'll see it with these sort of red or these yellow boxes. These are more talking about public services. So we know that we're going to need to plan for new fire substations as the community grows.
Oh, this is the
Emergency
really serious,
preparedness.
This is
very
the serious stuff
group.
that runs,
Yes.
makes the community work. I see
Makes the
that
community
now.
work.
Substations.
Substations.
Public
notification.
notification, sheltering in a disaster.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things you just don't sit down and think about unless you do sit down and think about them, about how we're going to keep ourselves safe, secure, and underpin our growth.
Correct.
Right?
I mean, so we all saw at the July 2nd storm that, we had the carnival going down at the waterfront. We had people in all different types of places around the community. And even though we had all those trees that fell down, surprisingly enough, we didn't have anybody that got hurt. So
Yes.
we want to make sure that we are addressing those types of services for the community.
And the
And the
warning, I don't see it
Oh,
on
this
here.
public
Yeah, the
or
warning.
sheltering and notification systems.
Notification worked fine. At
Right.
least it did across the lake.
Yeah, so the other part to this is also the infrastructure. And I say that these go together because when you're talking police, fire, engineering, all of those are really interconnected. If you don't have the streets maintained and available, then how does the fire department get to where they need to go? If you don't have affordable and adequate power, if you do have an emergency, how are people, how does the system get back and running quick enough?
Right.
So a couple of the things that the infrastructure group was looking at too, one of the things that we talk about is as the city continues to grow, providing those municipal utilities to the orderly annexation areas.
Yes,
right.
right.
Improving stormwater treatment. We live on a lake system and we're the first city on the Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is part of a watershed. So understanding how your stormwater treatment affects your area.
Right, and other areas.
And other areas, right. So we talked a lot about that. We also talked about making sure that we have a good water quality for drinking. So where are the wellheads and how are they protected?
So infrastructure, this is what our city, this is what keeps us as a city, is having the right infrastructure, because if anything here is not available or falls apart, we as citizens are going to be very unhappy. And
Yeah, and I'll say one thing, it's not just city-centric. I keep wanting to bring that back up. For instance, we have a fire district.
right.
So it is a fire department that works for the whole area.
Surely.
We also, the emergency management is a county-wide service. So when we're talking about these, we have had other people sit in on, wider, bigger areas than even just our greater Bemidji area. So we all have to work together in order to make this one come to fruition.
So infrastructure, if you can make a contribution, is a very serious subject. If you have some opinions on how this might unfold from your vision of how you think the city's going to evolve, join up. Let's look at another one. Here we go. Remember, we're talking subcommittees that are working on the comprehensive plan. This is amazing in its breadth. And here we are talking about economic development, economic prosperity, support local businesses, our economy, supply jobs, shopping. This is economic growth across the wide spectrum. How's this committee working, Mayana?
So this committee we've actually combined with creativity, which we'll show you on the board that's right behind this one. And the reason that we combined it is because we found out in these committees that so many people that live here are not just one type of person. So we could take Lou, for example. You're retired here, but you're on the Joint Planning Commission. You have the Inside Bemidji television program. You're working to save the Carnegie. I myself am at City Hall, but then I have this photography business that I do on the side. And normally when people Google my name, they say, do you work at the city as well, when they meet me as a photographer? So we all have these multi-layered things. So that's why I said, it's economic development and creativity, because as people who live in the greater Bemidji area, we have it all mixed together.
Interesting.
Yeah, so some of the key things, though, that we looked at is that we definitely need an educated workforce. We have people tell us on a regular basis that they can't find people to do the jobs, and some of this is skilled labor jobs. Where are these people coming from who might be electricians or welders or these types of things? So we definitely need to discuss how we're educating our workforce. We need small business development to ensure that, some of our most successful businesses in Bemidji have come from here. They started off small,
Right.
and they've developed into larger businesses. The fun ones here that, of course, the group wanted to tell me was that we need friendly regulations. So I just chuckled. That's one to bring more jobs. but really looking at two things. Adding value to existing businesses. So it's just as important for 15 small businesses to each add one employee as it is for one new business to have 15 employees. Both of those need to occur in this community in order to be successful.
But of course, it never hurts to attract a new business,
Absolutely.
especially one that might grow and continue to supply jobs. This is a problem, and I say a problem or an opportunity or an endeavor, but whatever. What I'm trying to say is almost all towns are thinking about this. Every city in
correct.
America is probably thinking
That's
about
correct.
this. So is there something here about our the assets we have and how we differentiate ourselves and the attractors that we have? And I mean, I
Yeah.
hope they're working on that.
They are working on that. Another interesting thing that came out of this group was that we discussed how people tend to move here for a lower wage. That people are willing to take a lower wage because they want to live in the area. This might be people who are interested in the outdoors or hunting or fishing or something of that
Right.
nature.
Right.
So people come here because they want to live here.
Right.
So one of the main things we don't want to do is degrade our quality of life,
Yes.
because then why would people want to live
Yes.
here? So matching those two things together.
I have a brother-in-law down the city, can't wait to move up here. And he'll move up here for less money, but he
Right.
really wants to be here, and that he's fine with that.
Correct. So we found that happened a lot with people. So how do we also, bring people's income levels up? How
Well,
do
that's
we
right. And we all want to do that as well.
decrease poverty? We're a very poor community in general, and how do we, balance that, create more of those jobs, give people those opportunities? And it definitely does sort of a full circle thing with making sure we have an educated workforce.
Sure. Because the businesses are not going to come, or they're going to move out if they can't get employees.
Correct.
It's just that simple, and so it has to be a circle. Yeah.
And really diverse too.
I think in there, it should be said, that I believe that our technical college
Mhm.
down in Nymore
Yep.
understands this perfectly. And I can't wait to get them back later in the year and talk about that. Okay, economic prosperity is something we all want. Don't go away, I'm gonna flip this right off, and we're gonna talk about the other part of this group's task. Thank you, Mike. Creativity. You say you hook these up together.
Yeah, the reason that we hook these up together is that we really think, again, I go back to that quality of life. Some of the interesting things that came out of this that I really liked is develop an expanded winter lake culture. As we know, as we talked about at the beginning of the program, winter has lasted a minimum of 6 months this time around, and I know you get to escape a little bit of it, but some people are here the whole time. And even though we have this much winter and we have, and we're all sitting around the lake, we don't have this really strong lake culture in the winter. So the opportunities to do more festivals, to bring people to Bemidji for more than just that summertime, for just, the dragon boat festivals and stuff. Our summers get packed. So changing a little bit of our story, saying that we're here. We're here for all these additional months, and how do people come
And
up
we've
here?
got a new hotel going up, and
Yeah.
we've got the convention center, and maybe if we had more of a winter lake culture, we'd fill those up even better. right?
Exactly, that's
Good.
correct. Another thing was utilizing arts and cultural assets for economic development strategies. And I put a couple of businesses here because, for instance, the Bemidji Brewing Company, they're a business that is opening or hoping to open in our community, and they have Bemidji right in their name. So, if we have
Sure.
a local business that kicks off and that becomes regional and statewide,
Sure.
and
Sure.
then our name goes out across a much wider group of people. I also put up here these two Turtle River pasties. Again, anything that's a small local business, but
Yeah,
that also
nice.
continues to expand.
Mike
Stitworth,
Stitworth is
yeah.
talking about selling his brats all throughout the country. Told me
Correct.
that 6 months ago. I wonder how he's doing. We'll have to get him in.
We'll have to
But
get
that's
him to ask
another
him, yeah.
example. It's a
So
great
yeah,
example.
exactly. Some businesses that start here promote Bemidji, but at the same time are looking to expand. Also up here, again, I think this is economic development, but creating a downtown urban marketplace, plaza or gathering space. We know that we have a lot of thrift stores downtown, which is kind of an interesting aspect, and some people would argue for or against that, those types of businesses. But creating a market culture, having an area where people can come down and possibly sell goods that they made, or have that gathering place where people can do more to make amounts of money.
Other ways to keep a vibrant downtown.
Correct.
Right?
People are here, people are bartering, or maybe they're selling their wares, and then they're utilizing and going to other businesses in the community.
All right, creativity, mainly here organized around business development, but also art and culture as well. Let's look at another. So here we are, this is our last chart, and as you can see, this comprehensive plan is covering a lot of bases, opportunities to get involved, and who we are, our society. What's this, Mayana?
Yeah, I'm going to talk
This
a little
is
bit.
This is a subgroup.
It is a subgroup,
Okay.
and so some might say, well, what does this have to do with planning and zoning? And this group may not create a change in the zoning code, but I think that when we say comprehensive, we
Yeah, these are
need
things
to
we
have
wanna
that in
do.
there, correct?
Uh-huh.
So their goal, we respect our differences and what brings us together. We protect our long history and diverse population, and we all look for a safe and secure place in our community.
So this is our heart and soul.
It is, and so you can see a few things that are around the edges here. Build community reputation as an arts community.
Right.
We are that
There's
100%.
so much art here. It's just magnificent.
It's unbelievable, really, for the size of this community.
We've talked about sustainable
Ecological, yep.
needs of all ages.
All ages,
economic,
yeah. You can
cultures.
see here we put
This is be a community.
be a
right?
community, right? Racial acceptance.
Right.
One of the main things is that maybe it's not the greater Bemidji area, but we do have the variety of native cultures and communities that are surrounding our area. So definitely build that community.
The
We have
university.
students. We have
Food
farmers
source.
markets. And then this, invest and promote Bemidji as a regional center of tourism, education, cultural services, and business, but preserve that urban appeal of a town. So
this,
back to that.
I like this, Mayana, because
Yeah.
this is not, the infrastructure is so different. Infrastructure is so important, but
Mhm.
without this, then it's just kind of an engineering exercise.
Exactly.
This is more of a who we are as a community. I like it. So you've seen, I think, all of them. I don't know for sure, but all of these subgroups who are working on a comprehensive plan to guide the development of our community. And how does it continue to roll out, Mayana? What happens next, and when do you get where?
So the next step is actually going to be coming up with projects and talking about objectives and implementation. That's going to happen in the April to May timeframe. We'll have a couple more meetings. And then we are going to spend the summer working on drafting the different chapters. And then in the fall, we'll be bringing it back to the subcommittees to start looking at creating that implementation
So if I
strategy.
understood what you said there, pretty much most of these groups have got a vision.
That's correct.
They're beginning to get their goals laid out, and the next step is they're going to work and get those better organized.
That's correct.
And then they will then say, okay, with those goals, how are we going to get to them?
Correct.
And what are the most important things? And that's what you call projects, right?
Projects and objectives, that's
Okay.
correct. Mhm.
And then you write it all up, and then it's when it
So in the
is
fall,
available.
we'll be working on it. Once we write it all up, then that's the fun part of trying to get everyone to agree with what got written up. And so in the fall/winter is when we'll go through the adoption process of it.
What a great community endeavor. It's going to go on all the rest of the year. There's plenty of time to get involved.
Absolutely.
How do people get involved? How do they know where these subcommittees are, and how do they get involved?
The main thing would be to add your email to a list, so you could contact me. I think my email address as well as our website will be along the bottom of the program here.
Perhaps
And
right now.
perhaps right now. So therefore, email me, call us at the Joint Planning Office, get your name on a list if you aren't already on a list, or keep going back to the website, because our website has had a summary of everything that we've been doing up until now, and it'll continue having that. So keep reviewing, looking.
So
and
the
contacting
website
me.
will let's say I'm interested in one or more of these
Mhm.
subcommittees and what they're doing and their work. So I go on the website, and will the announcement of their meeting dates be on there?
Yes, the announcement of the meeting dates are on there. The
And I could
past
probably
work.
get my email on their list, and they directly let
That's,
me know?
that's correct.
It's easy.
It's easy.
Get involved. Mayana, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks again to Upstream TV. This is our first show of the season of Inside Bemidji, and we are trying to catch up here with all the work that's been going on here through the winter with our community, working on the comprehensive plan to guide our future. And thanks again, Mayana,
Thank you.
and good night.